Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of the specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode, Introduction, Who Are We and What Are We Doing?
Sarah, what movie are we doing this week?
This week, we will be talking about 24-hour party people. We are excited to welcome rock journalist Maggie Serota to the show. Maggie is a long-suffering writer and editor living in Brooklyn with her cat Cosmo, regarded by all as a good boy. She is a former staff writer for Spin, and her writing has appeared in The Village Voice, Esquire, Rolling Stone, and other fine publications, many of which sadly do not exist anymore. Welcome aboard, Maggie.
Thank you. That was a very good reading of the bio I wrote in 2 seconds.
Maggie and I worked together. I was at Billboard while she was at Spin.
Maggie, as a seasoned music journalist, can you tell us how critical it is that an artist have both a parent who is disappointed in them and or a dead brother?
Oh, definitely a parent that's disappointed in them. In Morrissey's autobiography, he has a moment that sounds like it was pretty formative for him. And I think this is probably a universal experience a lot of queer kids had growing up. But I remember him describing dancing and just kind of going off to a Nancy Sinatra record or something. And his father walking in and then the look of his face being like, hey, you're doing something wrong. By joyously enjoying that music and dancing, you're doing something wrong. And it was just I know, something, I have to hide this part of myself. I feel like that was a big motivator for him, probably.
It's a terrible story.
Yeah, isn't it horrible? Isn't it? But it's just kind of It's amazing. Decades later, he clearly remembered that moment so vividly to put that in his book. And it was
I can appreciate why. That seems like one of those things where your parent coming in and being like, what you're doing is wrong is kind of...
hey, we all live in this very, masculinity is a prison.
Mm-hmm.
We live in this constricting version of masculinity, and you're kind of coloring outside the lines here.
We have seen so many parents who really should not be disappointed in their children be incredibly disappointed in their children in the last year. Elton John's mother having a problem with him when he's Elton John is, how can any of us even try?
George Michael had immigrant parents, so his dad was just from Cyprus. So his dad was like, "You're going to be a doctor."
Oh,
you know what I mean? He was one of this really high achieving, kind of respectable professional son. And it's well, he was high achieving in a different way, that he was a generational artist. Yeah, I think that was one of his big motivators. The dad who was like, "No, you have to be a doctor."
Imagine him coming home and talking about faith, and his dad being like, "Okay, but when are you going to give this up? Are you going to get real and focus on your medical career?"
Yeah.
Well, you're episode 56, Maggie, so we've watched a lot of biopics.
How often does it feel like you're watching the same movie?
The music ones have a way, not all the music ones, but I would say the ones about the tragic man that all follow that sort of that Dewey Cox template.
Oh, yeah.
They have a tendency to not distinguish themselves in my brain. I couldn't tell you how many of those we've watched.
Yeah.
It feels like all of them. And you could probably convince me that something that happened in A Complete Unknown happened in Walk Hard.
It did.
Or not Walk Hard. In Walk the Line. Yeah, you could completely convince me of some of these movies having interchangeable moments, because there's notes that they all hit.
The music the kind of straight Lifetime music biopic, the Bob Marley one or the Elton John one. The problem I have with a lot of those movies is they kind of put the artist into a hero's journey, but the artist and the hero, they're way more complicated.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they've abused people, they've abused women, they've sexually assaulted people, in addition to their great achievements as an artist and sometimes as a human. A lot of them have a dark side. And if you want the rights to their music for the movie, you can't really talk about their dark side too much. And when the artist is involved in the movie, this is just hagiography. This is legacy maintenance.
You've interviewed Peter Hook.
Yes.
How does he feel about seeing himself portrayed on screen?
It's been a long time. I do remember that he thinks Tony, I'm going to use the C word because we're talking about a British movie, but like one of his big quotes is with Tony Wilson and Steve Coogan. Like the second biggest twat is playing the first. So to him, like Tony Wilson's the first biggest twat, and then Steve Coogan. Of the like of the movies that deal with Joy Division, so Control and then this movie, he said that the Ian Curtis in this movie was way more like the real Ian, acted like the way more like the real Ian Curtis.
I would believe that. Like the Ian Curtis in Control is beautiful, but it feels more like an art house film, and it's very, very depressing.
Yeah,
that
it's
movie.
Beautifully shot. It's beautiful. I didn't pick that one because I couldn't go through that one again. I thought that was too difficult. But what I will say with that one is you actually understand why Ian felt compelled to take his life when you realize all these various pressures on him. And then when you're watching this movie, it's like, did he just get bored with bad television and die? Like, you know?
And also the epilepsy. I didn't know about that until I was reading about it while I was watching the movie, and just the fact that was going to, at some point in the very near future, incapacitate him.
Yeah. Well, not only did it incapacitate him, but it like he lost like sexual, like he didn't have a libido anymore, so he couldn't perform. Like the drugs were very heavy. And then he's got a new girlfriend. He's kind of in love with someone. But he's also married with a kid and committed to life to someone he met really young. So you got all these different pressures coming together, and then like the pressure to support his family. But like he's got this music career coming up, which isn't really compatible with feeding a kid. All these different pressures coming together, just carrying this guy in so many different directions. And according to Peter Hook, he was like a really big people pleaser. That was like, he really wanted to be everything to everybody. And that was like, put a strain on him. Like that will... As, you know, lifelong people pleaser, I can tell you, like, an inability to set boundaries in your life will come back to haunt you.
So we always ask two questions.
Sure.
First, do you have a favorite biopic? And second, is there a biopic you want to see get made?
The one biopic I always choose, and it's not even real, it's a parody. Walk Hard is just so note for note, like the movie everyone, like the hero's journey that everyone kind of fits an artist into, and it's like
we love Walk Hard too. We did our April Fool's episode on Walk Hard. We spent like 45 minutes pretending that Walk Hard was real and that Dewey Cox was a real person.
Something they really captured really well in that movie was like, oh, the first wife's a harpy because she wants her like she wants her husband to be a present father.
Every time.
Yeah.
Like we do that every time. And also in all of those movies too, something they have in common is these men act as if they had no agency to choose this pathway. Like they act so put upon by the fact that they are famous. And it's like, you chose this.
Yeah.
You made it all about you. You're like, I have to entertain people. And it's like, oh, God. The wife.
I'm blanking on the one that biopic on Bez from the Happy Mondays. That's Bez.
I would love that.
Yeah, just Bez.
Yeah, with that, let's get on to the episode.
Yeah, let's do it.
Rena, can you give us the trigger warning?
Trigger warning. This movie contains depictions of drug and alcohol abuse, adultery, blowjobs, someone intentionally cutting themselves, snooty Cambridge grads, animal abuse, a variety of types of British accent, violence, parental neglect, the voice of God, nudity, incitement to loot, UFOs, clubs with strobe lighting, mental illness, tastelessly decorated vans, guns, divorce, suicide, fiscal negligence, funerals, toxic coworkers, addiction, crime, epilepsy, punk rock, divorce, breakage of the fourth wall, organized crime, and tearing down a David Bowie poster.
Also, I was just going to say there is an ugly ass table at the end of this movie.
Expensive furniture.
Pretty much got it all.
Out ludicrously expensive furniture. I think that probably falls under the fiscal irresponsibility umbrella.
Yeah, that Memphis school kidney hanging table kind of falls under that.
And Rena, can you give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having absolutely nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
Some of the sources we used in this episode include Unknown Pleasures, Inside Joy Division, and The Hacienda, How Not to Run a Club. Both are by Peter Hook. And also, this week we have an expert.
Maggie, can you please give us a 360-second rundown on Joy Division and the Manchester scene that spawned them?
Joy Division was one of many kind of bands that were inspired by the punk scene, but were more of a they're called more post-punk. I think our mutual friend Mike Doty used to say that's he used to have a joke about music that sounded like Serota rock because it was sounded like Joy Division or Susie and the Banshees. That music that was born out of punk but had legs beyond punk. In Manchester we've got the Buzzcocks, we've got Joy Division, Certain Ratio. As that scene evolves, it's a huge scene, and there's a lot of bands that don't get mentioned or get mentioned in passing in this movie. So for example, around 1980, the Smiths are getting started, so that is a huge Manchester band. And then in the early 90s, as Happy Mondays are really kind of starting to pop, then we've got Oasis is also from Manchester, so things that were just kind of larger than life. And in Spiral Carpets, the Charlatans, I think, a lot of the kind of bands that didn't really pop as much over on our side of the ponds, but had that kind of acid jazz kind of mixing dance music and kind of rock and guitar. Manchester is a decaying industrial town, and when you're in a place that's in decline, that's kind of gloomy, it's raining, and it's also in northern England, so there are things that are kind of the hillbillies, for lack of a better term. So what do you do when you're just a bunch of delinquents and you're left to your own devices? You throw dance parties in a field and you wear raincoats because it's raining and there's nothing else to do, or you play in your punk band because there's what else are you going to do in this town other than be unemployed and drink? That kind of decline really can foster a music scene, even if it's a music scene of derelicts. But that's probably all music scenes when you really get down to it. So, but it's easy to forget that when you watch a biopic, because it's the hero is on such an exalted journey.
And Sarah, can you please tell us a little bit about the 2002 movie 24-Hour Party People?
From our friends at Wikipedia, 24-Hour Party People is a British biographical comedy drama about Manchester's popular music community from 1976 to 1992, specifically about Factory Records. It was written by Frank Cottrell Boyce and directed by Michael Winterbottom. And the film was entered into the 2002 Cannes Film Festival to positive reviews. Some additional background: this movie made $2.8 million at the box office. I couldn't find its budget, but not unlike the Velvet Underground and the 44 people who saw that Sex Pistols show at the beginning of this movie has been hugely influential and has made a real footprint in popular culture. And I want to say that it changed the biopic, but immediately after this, we got a bunch of those treacly movies about sad men with guitars who had fame thrust upon them. But at the same time, I do think it really was expansive in its storytelling. And I know it definitely opened people up to the music, and it opened people up to that era. And also, it is the reason that we have Steve Coogan. This is how Steve Coogan broke through and never left. We cannot get rid of him. I think I don't like him for the same reason I don't want to be around Robbie Williams, who we talked about recently with Better Man, where he just seems like a benevolent narcissist, where it's it's just difficult to be around him. Just to mention here too, The Guardian has already called this one of the best 100 films of the 21st century. And also Michael Winterbottom, who directed this, is a fantastically diversified, prolific filmmaker. When I was reading about him, I was trying to figure out like what the through line of his career is, just because he has made so many different kinds of movies. I would say that he's clearly passionate about music. He's also very politically active. He directed Welcome to Sarajevo, In This World, Road to Guantanamo. These are all movies that really documented the atrocities and consequences of modern warfare. He also made A Mighty Heart, Angelina Jolie's blackface film, and The Killer Inside Me, which is a really disturbing noir film that came out in the early aughts. Also, interestingly enough, his first film is called Forget About Me. It is about a love triangle that develops from three people attending a Simple Minds concert. It's been in there the whole time, but he has been a deeply prolific filmmaker, and has told a lot of different kinds of stories in his career.
We open with a news report from Tony Wilson, who is about to hang glide above some British hills that I will not call mountains. I've never heard of the Pennines because they're too short. And he's currently a reporter with Granada TV.
We right away get the code of the movie, which I was super into. Every biopic should be like this. He's going to talk right to us. He is going to entertain us. He's going to like own what's happening on the screen. He's going to acknowledge that some of it's bullshit. I was in right away, even though I was like, oh no, I'm under threat of Steve Coogan.
Mm-hmm. I don't have that big of a problem with him. I saw this movie in theaters because I read some articles that were all, this Steve Coogan guy is a big deal in the UK, but nobody has heard of him here. And if you want to trick me into spending money on a thing, post an article about, here's this thing that's a big deal in Britain and nobody seems to get it over here.
Yeah. His thing was the Alan Partridge character. I guess like since the 80s he was doing that in Britain and that got him really big. I mean, I love the Alan Partridge character. I enjoy Steve Coogan a lot. I would not want to hang out with him. You know what I mean?
You could be entertained at a distance.
Yeah, entertained at a distance. Like, you know, probably wouldn't want to deal with him close up. I did see an amazing stage production of where he played like four different characters. Maybe the issue is that he knows he's brilliant, and that's what's off-putting.
Yeah,
and he did make this movie really funny.
Yeah. Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I have to say, I relate to the character that he's playing a lot because I recognize that insecurity or in that feeling of you have the fancy degree, now you have to live up to it. And that is like always on your shoulders. So you hide behind whatever labels you can put out in front of yourself as an adult to prove that you're somehow matching up. But also that I've often been accused of being pretentious, and it's been when I'm actually being the most myself.
He's definitely an insecure guy. I kind of like, there are definitely times where it's like he's definitely falling flat on his face, which I appreciate. Like when he tries to replicate Joy Division's success with a certain ratio, and he dresses them like Hitler Youth, and
yeah, and when you see him putting the self tanner on their legs, which IRL would turn them orange and smell terrible.
Yeah, a certain ratio is a good band, but like it was just fun. Or what else? When else did he take an L? Oh gosh, like when God was taunting him for not signing the Smiths at the end, and it's like I mean, who actually signed the Smiths was Seymour Stein, the legendary A&R guy from Sire Records, who signed the Ramones, who discovered Madonna, Talking Heads, Echo and the Bunnymen, like so, and who actually had a successful career. I interviewed him before he died, but had someone who had a successful career right up till the end. Unlike Tony Wilson, who just like flamed out of the music business.
Andrew Luke Oldham flamed out. A lot of people have a few years where they don't really know what they're doing and just happen to be in proximity and then disappear. So Tony reminds his agent guy that he went to Cambridge. He will remind a lot of people that he went to Cambridge throughout the picture. And then he walks onto an 18th century set to pick up his friend Alan Erasmus. And they go to see the Sex Pistols show that 42 people attend. And Andy Serkis appears as Martin Hannett.
Mm-hmm.
I'm obsessed with Martin Hannett now.
Yeah.
I was also thrilled to find out the name of this hall was Manchester Lesser Free Trade Hall. What a profoundly depressing place to perform.
Oh, yeah. The Buzzcocks when they perform. Something that was a little hard was seeing who had since died since this movie came out. When he name checks like Pete Shelley, it's like, and I think Pete Shelley passed in like 2018, and the Buzzcocks. And I was like, oh damn! And then you see like Marky Smith, and it's like, oh, Marky's not with us either. Forgetting who else, but like, yeah, there are a couple people where you're like, oh shit, these people are not around anymore. That is really sad.
A lot of them died in middle age.
Mm-hmm.
Andy Serkis is playing this role roughly contemporary to Gollum,
Mm-hmm.
which was interesting to me to note. And there are actually several like pre-famous character actors
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't recognize. Paddy Considine
Awesome.
as Rob Gretton.
He was awesome. He was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved that character a lot.
Like the time where he just tried to like whoop like Tony Wilson's ass over like twice over the cost of that table.
There's like a few Doctor Who people on this. John Sim, who, like Eric Roberts, who Sarah is a huge fan of, played the Master opposite an incarnation of Doctor Who, and was also on a British show called Life on Mars that I really liked. He's in this.
He was in a movie in 1999 called Human Traffic I liked a lot. And it was like a really fun comedy about the rave scene. And it had like Sasha and Digweed, like a lot of the big like producers and DJs had their cameos in it. It was really fun. It's a fun kind of little time capsule to revisit.
Cool. Yeah, I had a friend who I remember mourning the death of Twilo because that was where Sasha and Digweed had their residency in New York. Oh, Christopher Eccleston briefly shows up, and I feel like the character that he plays is this ghost who is like who Tony would be if everything had gone wrong for him. Because he's this homeless person yelling medieval texts.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Christopher Eccleston is actually in several Michael Winterbottom movies, including Jude.
Michael Winterbottom, he also works with Steve Coogan a lot. There's one biopic he does later on I saw. I'm pretty sure it was Michael Winterbottom called The Look of Love, where he...
Yes.
It was a biopic on the pornographer Paul Raymond. So I kind of went into that one like flying high from 24-Hour Party People and from who was on like the poster, like, oh, all these great actors, but it didn't kind of hit me. It didn't really hit.
So we're at the show and there's the announcement, the Buzzcocks can't play because we're not ready. So it's just the Sex Pistols. I love they do this talk through on who everyone in the audience is. Martin Hannett is the first person to start pogoing after John the Postman, who is a real person. There is a Wikipedia entry on John the Postman. He just carried on being a postman. Tony is married to his first wife, Lindsay, and this actress looks familiar because she was Moaning Myrtle in the Harry Potter series.
She's also in Bridget Jones's Diary. I mean, she's great. She's in so much things. But she's like one of those British actresses I'm always I'm always stoked to see.
She's been in at least one Jane Austen adaptation.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I just can't remember which one. They all have. And there's this thing of like mixing grainier footage in where you can't really, like, I found I couldn't tell where I was watching a blend of where I was watching grainy footage of the actual thing or actors playing it.
Oh, like because when they intersperse some old documentary footage through the yeah. I had a couple moments like that. I remember watching it and being like, "Wow, that actress really looks like Rowetta," and it's like, no, that was Rowetta playing herself on the
yeah. I think she was the only one who still looked young enough to play himself.
It was really funny to me to watch her like just roast the hell out of Sean and Bez. Like, no, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Bez. Like, I wouldn't get with either of you.
I would be mortified to be on a van full of musicians whose work I loved and they're all watching porn. I would like cry.
I would love to just talk to her about like what's it like to be a woman in a band with Sean, the Ryder brothers, and Bez. Like what? Like how much are you putting up with?
The smell on that bus.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Yeah. They And I think they caught the look of the time really well, and that everybody doesn't immediately switch up their look. And actually, when I read the Joy Division book, that's something that he mentions, that they hadn't switched to wearing punk at the first shows. They were still wearing flared trousers. And I noted that, like, Lindsay, I noticed how much frost she's wearing in her nails and on her eyeshadow, because, like, frosted polish chips the fastest. And that's, like, my moment for the show of getting caught up in a fashion thing, which happens like every show.
She's still kind of looking glam. In real life, when they were at that show, I think they had just started dating. They weren't married yet. They kind of condensed the timeline, but that is someone I would really love to talk about their representation in this movie, because she actually has a pretty, like, long career in the music industry herself, but you would never know it watching this movie.
I was just wondering about that. Like, how did he meet her? Did she go to university? What is her job? What does she do all day?
She actually got fired from the record label, and, like, under kind of shady circumstances, like after they broke up. She thought it was like a really hostile boys club culture, which, you know, yeah, man, I saw that footage of Happy Mondays on the bus. I get it. They were constantly fucking someone else to get back at each other. Like, that was true. That's real life. She was fucking Howard Devoto. Like, that was absolutely true. I don't know if they did it in that bathroom then. They say they don't remember that part, but it's like, no, they were having an affair for years.
Good for her.
Yeah. I enjoy this bit, which is coming up. So they get home and Alan rips down posters because everything is old compared to whatever they just saw. And that is when he tears down the David Bowie poster over Lindsay's fleas. And Tony and Lindsay have this stoned couples spat about how his jeans don't fit because his hips are like a woman. And it's like, he's super insecure and she just kind of accepts him as he is. And I like watching the dynamic of her managing him in this marriage, and I can totally see why this is a starter marriage.
Yeah.
Also, that the number that they mentioned, 42, the magic number of people at the show.
Yeah. And they never really quit each other either. Like, they were kind of like had secret affairs even after they were like split up and with other people, and she spent the last couple months of his life with him. Spiritually, they could never really quit each other. I think. Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't get it together the first time around. I mean, well, I guess look at the scene they were hanging on. But I always wonder, I feel like this movie really shortchanged her in a lot of ways, because she leaves him. And then she kind of just shows up every once in a while, kind of whimpering, kind of her face against the glass. The real woman sounded way more badass than she was.
When she shows up at that final thing on the last night at the end.
She's looking like a lost puppy. If that was me, I would have some thoughts and feelings about how I was being portrayed.
Yeah. Tony notes that his show broadcasting out of Manchester is the only place to see punk rock because the BBC hates it. He wants to know if the camera is on his boot in a certain way, which is just stupid. There's also a neat little throwaway of how John the Postman has safety pins all over his postman uniform while he's dropping off the mail. Then we get a preview of the Happy Mondays.
Something about the representation of the Happy Mondays for me is lacking. I don't know if this movie really communicated why they were so special. Maybe it's also just because they didn't really pop as much over in America. The guy who plays Bez, he doesn't really have the charisma of a guy that oh, okay, I can see why you put this guy on a stage, this energy changes.
Agree with that.
Mark Berry's kind of handsome in a weird looking way. He's kind of he's a total freak, but he's kind of cute and he's aged well. Weirdly, and he kind of remained a celebrity, really famous over, he just pops up in reality shows and shit, but just he still has a career as a public person, just outside of the Happy Mondays. I feel some of that kind of mad charisma was lost in how they
showed them being train wrecks.
Oh yeah.
Sarah?
I was just going to say that as someone who knows very little about this music scene, I have to agree with that assessment. The movie, it sort of assumes that you know why these people are magical. It didn't always carry all the way through. With them, I was kind of well, what is special about you exactly?
With the Joy Division segments, I got it. when the kind of pieces come together, when they have the different tracks, they're recording the different tracks and they leave poor Stephen Morris on the roof, but it's like you just hear these goofy little these kind of just goofy little attempts at playing a beat or a bass line, but then when it comes together, I'm like, I have goosebumps. I'm like, oh my god.
I'm obsessed with process being shown in movies about artists, so I was so delighted by that scene in the studio and watching all of that come together and seeing how Martin was a genius, and also leaving the drummer out on the roof.
Like when they finally when they finally he's up there and they finally hit, oh, that's the beat I know. Like the kind of when he's on the oh, okay. I don't feel like I've ever really seen that much in a music biopic. I feel like if in like a music biopic, everything just kind of happens by magic, not by tinkering. In most music biopics, it happens like one guy's just a singular genius, and he can just pull these songs out of his ass. And it's like, here, no, you see how painstaking and kind of tedious like this shit can be, and how tedious it kind of sometimes has to be. So
yeah, I feel like you can smell the takeout food and the cigarettes in these studios that they're stuck in forever, sick of being there.
Yeah, and Peter Hook probably just exhausted on the couch, watching him do a Barney's vocal, guitar track another time, and
yeah. So this scene with the very young Happy Mondays, they think that Tony's punk show is lame, and they're super into this yodeling guy. Yeah. And actually, they're right. He has a fantastic voice. And of course, I want to go, oh, why are they watching this yodeler? I'm put to shame here. And I think one thing that it captures well in that is that people who change something in the world see things differently.
Yeah.
So they go to open a club. This is when we first get that Tony is a terrible businessman because the guy who owns the club just tells him the split. No one attempts to negotiate. Yeah. He is out of his depth and he can't stand that they're both named Tony, and he finds out it's his last name. So he starts calling him Don. He mentions again that he went to Cambridge, and it's the first night at the club, and we officially meet Rob Gretton, who comes across as such a huge personality in both of the movies about this, where there's someone else playing him. But in all of the videos that I could find online to see if he was really like that, he comes across as very mellowed out from what the actors were portraying. I don't know if that's because he's much older. In any documentary footage I would have seen, that I'm always sort of drawn to brash characters like this because the whole big promotional personality type is so far outside my own skill spirit that when he comes in boosting everything, I'm like, what is this and how do you do that?
What do you make of how they touched on the kind of Nazi flirtations with we see Peter Hook bragging that he punched a couple. But if you read Peter's book about his time in Joy Division, he really tattles on Barney a lot because he says a lot of that came from Barney.
I want to tell myself the story that the Pistols used swastikas because it was the most offensive thing they could think of, not because they hated Jews, and Nancy Spungen was Jewish.
Yeah.
I want to buy that, we just keep accidentally making Nazi references. Oops. I want to believe that and keep enjoying this. And that, isn't it this funny coincidence? We keep accidentally making Nazi references. I want to run with that.
Oh, yeah. And that was part of the whole scene, though. Susie and there's all footage of Susie and the Banshees wearing an armband, and there was a time in punk rock where that was the most shocking thing you could do. Was
a theory to posit as well here, which is, you look at the time gap between when this is happening, and then think about remember back in the mid-aughts when everyone was hashtag edgy racist?
Oh yeah.
Vice.
Yeah.
Vice did that. It was the most offensive and edgy thing you could do was be pretend racist.
Yeah.
But you were still being racist. You were just being ironically racist. I'm wondering if it's something similar to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is also kind of what you have all just said in terms of it being the most kind of shocking and offensive thing you could do, but kind of in a controlled environment where everyone is going to, I'm not saying it's okay, but everyone understands kind of the rules.
Yeah.
I think that the bands were coming to it from a place of just doing it because fascist references are offensive and they wanted to be in your face, but their fans maybe sometimes not so much. Ick.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Ick, indeed.
Well, it's kind of like that. It's like that notion in art of representation isn't necessarily endorsement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And people aren't self-aware of what the artists that they're listening to or dancing to or singing along with meant. And it makes me mad. They may not necessarily care. Mm-hmm. But also, at this point, enter Joy Division. And you really liked Sean Harris, Sarah.
I really like Sean Harris, period. I think he's a really a good actor, and he pops up in all kinds of things all the time. My understanding is surface. I'm familiar with Joy Division and have seen videos and everything, and I felt like he really got the movement really well.
Yeah.
And also just the look in his face, the haunted look.
Like the haunted look and the eyes staring in, like the cold eyes staring into the middle distance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like it was a really like a wonderfully like physical performance in terms of the way he really embodied him. And he really captured that sort of like indescribable sadness. I should mention here because it was a conversation in my house last night. Sean Harris is not related to Richard and Jared Harris.
Oh, okay.
And I had to look because he is ginger. And he is British and he is an actor. So, like, why wouldn't he be? But he is not.
Like, imagine if we had, like, a traditional biopic scene of Joy Division and it's like, Ian Curtis has to think about his whole life before he takes the stage.
His whole life is so short. So after this show, the other Tony, there is a disgusting scene of having random sex with out-of-shape men in the back of a shag-carpeted van in the British post-industrial wastelands sounds like a special kind of hell, and I can't see the appeal of this lifestyle. I remember when we watched Straight Outta Compton, Sarah, you said that Eazy-E's pool party was your idea of hell, but I think this is pretty bad. This van has 6-inch shag carpeting along the floor and up the sides, and there are hookers, and it's the tackiest thing I've ever seen. It looks filthy, and it reminds me of, like, Maggie, I know you're from the Philadelphia area too. There was the giant walk-in heart at the Franklin Institute, and you would like walk through it and you'd hear the beating and you'd learn about all the parts of the heart. But this van is like that, re-envisioned as a giant walk-in cervix full of venereal disease and like thrush fibers and fungus coating everything. And the vision is ruining my happy childhood memories of the Franklin Institute. I can't overstate how disgusting this van is.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. The one where Tony Wilson gets a blowjob?
Yeah.
It's not what you think. Or no, it's not how it looks. I loved that so much when his wife comes in and he's like, it's not how it looks. Like he's sitting there with like his pants off with a woman has his penis in her mouth.
Yeah, kind of wild that we get Howard Devoto has a little cameo in there, but Lindsay doesn't.
When she finds him in the van, I feel like I would want to think that I'd immediately divorce them, not for cheating in the 70s, but for the shag carpeting. But Lindsay immediately hooks up with Howard Devoto, and I love how this film breaks the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then there are things like the posters arrive after the gig that
Peter Seville shows up with the
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to the iconic Peter Seville, who's like aesthetic, like defines this whole era. And when he shows up the tickets, like, oh, I guess we'll use them as souvenirs. And it's like, how much would that be worth right now? Like a ticket to Hacienda Peter Seville designed.
So there's this thing of writing a contract that is not exactly a contract in blood. In Control, Tony Wilson bleeds a lot more than he does here, highlighting that Martin Hannett is a genius. You see him like recording in the hills, and I noted that it's kind of mortifying to me that Martin Hannett and I have the same hair at the moment. That was not intentional. But yeah, it's one of those it's one of those process scenes that you love, Sarah, where he says there's a rattle in the drum kit and he insists that they take it apart and rebuild it on the roof.
Yes. Oh, I loved it so much.
They leave poor Stephen Morris up there. I think the actor, that was a good actor for Stephen Morris. He was like kind of gangly with thick black hair. I think like the two most well cast, like, and John Sim, I could have sworn I thought it was really Barney, like when I first watched this movie. Like John Sim is so well cast as Barney Sumner.
I guess they also showed them listening to the album in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like Ian Curtis's voice when I've heard it on recordings is in a lower register than what I heard Sean Harris doing, and that kind of threw me off a little, even though so much else about the performance was right. And I know that that's a risk you take when you decide not to do lip syncing.
Yeah. I didn't think it was that distracting. It's just kind of like it's a trade-off. It's not going to be apples to apples.
Yeah. There's references to the economic mess in the UK. I love that, like, grave diggers are refusing to bury people because that sounds freaking apocalyptic. So Ian has a seizure on stage, and it just feels like, could there be a worse career for someone with epilepsy than having to deal with strobe lights?
Yeah. Oh, shit, that's right. I didn't even think of that.
Poor man.
The meds that they had for epilepsy at the time were from the let's throw darts at this board and see what sticks school of medicine. Basically, they were messing with his mental state, weren't they?
His epilepsy medicine like infringed on his quality of life in a number of ways. He couldn't perform sexually anymore, was a big one. And they were just heavy. They were just really heavy drugs. Like, they really took a big toll on him.
Did anyone ever say to, like, people in the clubs, hey, don't use a strobe light, the lead singer has epilepsy?
I don't know if they all really knew a lot about epilepsy. In general, that kind of crew of people. Like, I don't know if they're really putting, like, it all together, like, oh. And I think, like, Ian was maybe pretty tight-lipped about it, too. Like, I don't think he'd run into a lot of people that didn't, like, know.
Yeah, it's horribly sad.
Yeah.
What about what he's watching on the TV? This is my nerdiness. He's watching the Werner Herzog film Strozek.
Yep. I think that really was on TV when...
Werner Herzog has a lot of problems with chickens. It's not the most optimistic material to be engaged.
No. He also, like, I don't know if in real life Lindsay stopped by on his last night. I know that for years Genesis Peorage was claiming that they were the last person to talk to Ian Curtis. Don't know if that's true. I know they were hanging out a lot at this time.
One of the things that's really annoying about Sharon Tate's murder and the murder that took place in her home is that there's like 600 people who claim that they were supposed to be there that night. Is Ian Curtis? Is it one of those things where like everyone is like, I was the last person to talk to him? No, I was.
There's a lot of competition in death of like who was the most important, who was the most beloved ex, sometimes death brings out a weird competition in people where they're fighting over who loved them more, who was loved by them more, who was the most special little boy. Just that brings out a weird thing. I remember reading in Peter Hook's in his book about Joy Division that at Ian Curtis's funeral or at a memorial, Bono was like, don't worry, I'm picking up the mantle. Like,
oh, fuck you. Yeah. Sorry. Fuck you, like Bono.
Bono had kind of appointed himself like the torchbearer. Look how upset Sarah is.
They're very different singers.
Yeah.
Speaking of benevolent narcissists.
I mean, the first couple, the very first U2 album's great post-punk. Like, it's a really good post-punk record, but it's like apples and oranges.
One of the first things Phil Collins supposedly said to either Roger Daltrey or Pete Townshend after Keith Moon died was like, if you ever need a drummer, I'm sure that's what they're concerned with right this moment.
Yeah.
For a movie that does have some like really tragic moments in it, the way that they handled this was really wonderful, where it is lovely and it's sad, but it's not overplayed.
They don't take themselves too seriously. It's like, well, these are a bunch of, like, derelicts, like, wilding, and I don't think they, like, lose that. Like, these are a bunch of dirtbags.
Yeah.
Like, this is inmates running the asylum, like, which I think they don't lose sight of, and they kind of use, like, Tony Wilson as a conduit to talk about far more, like, unhinged and complicated people. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of show those other people and with like warts and all, but like Tony gets a little sanitized, like especially when he's talking about meeting his beauty queen wife, because like he was married with two kids. Like when that flirtation was happening, like he was married with 2 kids to his second wife.
Yeah, and they go into that later, just what an incredibly negligent husband and father he is.
But it's an afterthought, like, oh, by the way.
I think that's part of the thing but he makes his excuses around that, like that this isn't about me. And he's less interesting personally than all the people he's surrounded with. That's acknowledged.
But I think that's kind of an interesting way in. Just kind of like go through the suit, the record, the label guy. Like just go through like the hanger on. You get this film where these people don't take themselves too seriously. You can kind of talk about what dirtbags these people really are because you're not like grounding the whole movie in their internal world. You can't really put Sean Ryder on a hero's journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's like the problem with so many of these things is that they do have a hero's journey. It's like USC Film 101. Joseph Conrad looms over so many of these things way too strongly, and I like the ways that this is messy. Or and the way that like these are shitheads. First and foremost, these are shitheads. The Ryder brothers, shitheads. If you're talking to someone who's just heard New Order and Joy Division for the first time, what would be your observations, Maggie, about like what makes them fundamentally different? I just kind of know my taste. I know I gravitate towards certain things, and that probably the ground zero of that is those two bands, and then the Smiths. But even though I find Morrissey repugnant now because it's racism, these were kind of like, those were kind of the building blocks to who I am as a person. If you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. But like New Order is also a band that's like a pop act that sold millions and millions of records. So apparently a lot of people get it. I'm going to be as tactful as possible in describing Bernard Sumner's vocals. His voice has his voice has an everyman quality to it, is what I was going to say. I think Peter Hook is the better vocalist.
Spoken like a publicist.
Oh, slap.
But I think there's a charm to Bernard's vocals. It's like all the charm is in the trying. Like that dude's trying.
They go from having someone like Ian Curtis's voice. It's like this melodic baritone croak.
Yeah.
And it's so distinctive. So it goes from having that to having this like he sounds like a teenager going through puberty. He's always like writing checks his vocal cords can't cash, in terms of octave or in terms of pitch. But you know, I find it really listenable. I kind of find a lot of like character and personality in his voice. I mean, the older,
love that description.
I would argue that Peter Hook is the better vocalist. There are a couple early songs like "Dreams Never End." I think Peter is the vocalist, and so I think he's the better singer. But his voice he also has a baritone that's very similar to Ian's, and I can see why they went in a different direction. So how does New Order settle on who's going to take over vocals for the most part? I don't know how that went down, but like Peter Hook, he had a very acrimonious breakup with New Order and hasn't been in the band for years. So I think like just Barney's the de facto leader now. But Peter will not hesitate to talk shit on him. Oh, man, the Everly brothers hated each other too. And then they talk about about Act 2 within Lives, and we're in Act 2. It's like it's splits in half. There isn't one pure arc. Yeah,
I loved that. I loved their breakup. I thought their breakup was so real.
I'm with him. I'm like, what is this new age mumbo jumbo about bad energy? Does anyone win Nobel Prizes for observing it? So I thought there's a scene that makes me laugh and feel guilty about it every time, like that the Ryder brothers are committing mass pigeon murder.
Oh,
and they're thrilled. Yes.
And it's kind of like I'm watching that realizing, oh wow, that's serial killer behavior.
There's this there's this one poorly CGI'd image of like a pigeon's eye as if it's about to go. And I love the way they're using Bride of the Valkyries here. Oh, that was great. I mean, something I love about this movie, it like has a way to make something out of nothing. Where it's like, even if nothing's really happening, like you're just like, how do I kind of explore this space visually to talk about why who these people are and who they are? Like, okay, we can kind of make what would be like kind of a creepy, disturbing event something more like cinematic. I think yobs is the term that they use over there. So much of this music was picked up by like arty kids over here that you don't realize that's not the background of the people who were making it. No, they're working class. They are,
They're Northerners.
Did you find that the accents here were like lighter? Because I've watched the British version of Shameless and I had to put the subtitles on because the Manchester accents were so thick.
I do put subtitles on for things like British music documentaries, but like this was okay. The ones I always had the worst time understanding were Alan McGee. He's the Scottish founder of Creation Records. Like for that documentary, I definitely put on the subtitles, and also like the Gallagher brothers. Like I remember like when they were on like MTV, like all the time, like they would get They were like the only English speakers that would get subtitled.
And as they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they have these bags of breadcrumbs that they've put rat poison in, and they're throwing it around for the pigeons to eat. And you see thousands of pigeons just eating the breadcrumbs and flying up and then going plop. And this is animal abuse. I wonder what the moral compass and empathy of the Ryder brothers is.
No, the Ryder brothers should be in jail so many times over. They got cast as the drug dealers in this movie for a reason. Like for like the gangster drug dealers in this movie for a reason.
Sean Ryder is the Jim Jones of pigeons.
He actually was the Jim Jones of pigeons because the breadcrumbs were also consumed with the expectation that they would not kill them.
You're right. The pigeons think they're just eating.
I just was wondering, like, if the Happy Mondays ever thought about suing Oasis for stealing their identities. I couldn't get over how Gallagher brother-esque they were.
Yeah, they're very yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah, like I was like,
realize Gallagher brothers are very Mancunian. There are a lot of Gallagher brothers, and they're just not famous. Like,
yeah, like
you know
everybody
what I mean?
has to wear those coats because it's cold.
There are a lot of drunk brothers in Manchester with shaggy hair throwing hands at each other. They just like not all of them are millionaires.
Brothers probably shouldn't be in bands together.
Well, no one should spend that much time around their family.
Yeah, I think that's the fair consensus.
The Hacienda opens, and what was this? Why didn't they just raise the prices on Blue Monday if it cost 5 pence more to produce than they sold it for?
One of many questions. Many questions. Why spend £30,000 on a table? Just add that to the list. Just add it to the list.
I mean, I would argue that the 50 quid per hour in 1979 for Martin Hannett was that's justified. That's probably what, like $600 an hour now. Yeah. So that makes sense, but they are $700,000 in the hole opening this place, and Hannett breaks up with them quite memorably.
I can't get over that they spent all of the Blue Monday music revenue on this, and
wouldn't you be
that wasn't a problem.
You never saw a freaking dime of that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, like Blue Monday money. I mean, are you kidding me? How many soundtracks is that song on? Like
Blue Monday, the song every DJ puts on when they need to go to the bathroom.
Were they aware at the time of how ridiculous the business practices were?
Of course they were. They know. I mean, in the movie, like Rob Gretton is constantly calling like Tony Wilson a piece of shit.
But they stayed together for all of this running through money.
Yeah, and
I don't know. Anyway, there's a thing with flying saucers.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize like how much a part of that is the like real like Sean Ryder origin story. Because apparently, like in the late, I guess like in 2012 or 2013, like the BBC gave him like a UFO show, like kind of like a History Channel style like UFO show.
Oh my God!
So I was like, what? It didn't make sense to me then, but now that I see the movie, I'm like, oh, because he thinks he saw UFOs. Okay. I remember the trailer. I mean, he was looking pretty worse for wear back then. I can't imagine like what he looks like now, but like, yeah, I'm sure it's on YouTube.
So anyway, recording the Happy Mondays is initially a disaster. We meet Bez.
The role of drug dealer, maraca player, dancer sounds like a dream job.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the job that maybe I was born to do, except I don't think I'd be good at dealing illegal drugs.
What is the story on Bez, Maggie? Like, he just started dancing on stage with them, or what happened there?
Oh, I read his memoir, actually. It's called Dancing. You know, N apostrophe, obviously. Even before he was in the Happy Mondays, he lived in Morocco and was working on a weed farm, which is like just so high. I mean, I'm surprised, shocked he's not like in jail, but
So many of these people should be in jail.
yeah, he's not just a guy I figure would get away with. I mean, his real name is Mark Berry. Like, there was definitely some resentment with the other band members when he joined because he doesn't like play an instrument, but he's like the most recognized. He's the most recognized. Like, he gets paid. He got money like from it. So it's like,
Does he get like royalties on album sales for music he's not playing?
I think you can make the argument that the microphones are picking up the maracas, right? I mean, if I was his lawyer, that's the one I'd be trying in court.
I'm also surprised that Tony Wilson didn't wind up in white collar prison at some point. Yeah. But there's that observation that they're applauding the DJ, and then there's the line, "This is the moment when even the white man starts dancing."
See, that part I couldn't get down with. There were some parts that I thought were like too heavy, like they were too self-serious and heavy-handed. Like, I don't think that was the first time the DJ was the star. I mean, maybe because I'm just like tripped up because like as an American we had disco.
It's esoteric to Britain.
Like, I just don't think we needed that. We didn't need that fourth wall breakage from Tony at that point. And I thought it was just too self-serious as compared to the rest of the movie.
If every biopic broke the fourth wall this way, it would get very, very tiresome quickly.
Yeah.
But because it's so fresh here, and because they're telling the story in a way where they just like let things arc and fade and arc and fade.
Yeah.
Instead of adhering to hero's journey rules, it feels very fresh to me. And I don't like get bored or start saying like trope.
Yeah.
Hannett is back. He has put on a ton of weight.
Yep.
With apologies for the fat shaming.
Well, we're not. I mean, that's just the fact. He put on a lot of weight. He was like he was unhealthy.
Yeah, and Tony remarks that the last time he'd seen him, Hannett shot him.
Yeah.
What was wrong with Martin Hannett's mental state?
I don't know. But I think he's just more of a composite of like. I think there's kind of a romantic notion of genius that people fall in love with, like. Hey, that the fact that they're unruly and antisocial and like abusive, that's, you know, the price we pay for what they give us. And it's like, nah, I don't think it has to be that way. No one has to put up with this. No one has to. I think it's more an interrogation of that trope of like, what are we willing to put up with because of quote unquote genius, especially male genius? And it's like, well, really, what are we enabling? I think it's not like this behavior isn't like, I think any creator has like control issues, but what point did they become enabled to the point where we just created a monster?
He does look quite monstrous in these scenes. I also like, do people really understand what the producer does? Like, he yells and turns some dials.
I think it was pretty clear.
I actually felt like this movie really illustrated very nicely what a producer does.
Also, the Mondays touring bus also seems like another kind of hell to me.
Yeah, God bless Rowetta each and every day.
Yeah. And
God's
she looks amazing here.
Great.
So yeah, there's that like whitewashed scene of him meeting, was she his third wife?
Yeah, she's the third wife. He was married when he met her. That doesn't really make its way into the meet cute, obviously. When he's flirting with her, it's like, oh yeah, you have kids and a wife, but
yeah. So there's a bunch of there's a TV interview disaster following some gigantic early cell phones and cocaine metaphors. And you had a note for me here, Sarah, about the interviewer on this TV interview that Tony screws up.
Oh yeah, I thought that this interviewer, I was like, this man is speaking Rena's love language.
This like little old British politician who's completely unresponsive to Tony Wilson. That's
just the spirit of that person,
right?
He can exist in any form. This is the person who is this out there in the world. Like I felt like speaking your love language. That's all.
Gotcha. So they've built these very expensive offices that have a zinc roof that no one can see.
Yep.
And I love Rob's reaction to them spending 30,000 quid for a dysfunctional table. I think that this violence is justified.
This like scene kind of reminded me of the .com boom.
Oh yeah.
Like you're spending so much money in this office that to like where you might not even produce anything that makes money.
This movie came out right after the dot-com bubble.
Yeah.
But the dot-com bubble is over 10 years after what they're showing here. They couldn't make a profit at the Hacienda because they couldn't sell ecstasy and no one wanted to drink. They go to Hannett's funeral where the casket is too big to go into a...
Yeah, I mean, that was true in real life. Yeah.
They didn't think we need to dig a wider hole. I'm asking too many questions.
You gotta think of this, like, have you guys covered in All the President's Men yet on this podcast?
Not yet. We have a 25-page, 10-point single-space list of biopics.
Okay. All right. So,
that is in there.
So have you seen the movie, though?
Yes.
Okay, so you know the scene where Hal Holbrook shows up to Bob Woodward's apartment and he's just like, hey, the thing you have to understand is these guys aren't very bright and it just got out of hand. That's the answer for every one of your questions. These guys aren't very bright and things just got out of hand.
Yeah. So the Happy Mondays go to Barbados to record their fourth album. And I love this story. It was supposed to be produced by Tina Weymouth and Chris Frantz
I didn't know that.
The Talking Heads.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's a true story that things started to get out of hand when Sean Ryder drops his methadone supply at Heathrow Airport.
When he's looking it up off the floor, Jesus. Best laid plans, mice and men.
Yeah. And this gave rise to one of my absolute favorite music industry quotes of all time, which was an A&R man said about it: sending a smackhead with a ton of money to a crack-infested resort island was probably not the best idea.
Oh, and their manager was like totally off the chain too. Like their manager was like an active addict.
Yeah, it seems like they made their dealer their manager or something. Yeah. Or their supplier. I also love the way that they show this as like a Robinson Crusoe tale where they run through something like 200 grand and then they sell the furniture and the clothes and they're sitting, like it shows him sitting naked on a rock saying how he couldn't be bothered to write lyrics.
Oh yeah.
Just the level of disaster here found hilarious.
Like, why would you put them unsupervised, send them unsupervised anywhere? Like, why would you send them anywhere that isn't like a Supermax? Like,
I feel badly for half of the talking heads having to deal with these guys.
Yeah, I can't. Tina's already had to deal with like David Byrne disrespecting her in so many ways, I'm sure. I mean, she's tough, but even so.
I wonder which was worse. Like, dealing with David Byrne or dealing with this?
They both got significant drawbacks. Like, David Byrne had made her like audition to be in the band, even though she like re-auditioned to be in the band like several times and stuff, and it's like, didn't do that to any of the male members. What's going on here?
I feel with the Ryder brothers, it wouldn't feel like it was personal.
Yeah.
David Byrne messing with your head, I'd feel like that would... But you're right, it's, as with many things here, apples and oranges. Yeah. This just sounds like one of the worst album recordings of all time. And when they finally, like, extract the track, like, there's no vocals on it, which I would love to hear Tina and Chris's story on how this happened. John holds the album hostage. They go to a pub to get it from him, and he sells it to them for like 50 quid. And this is the one time in the whole film that Tony Wilson shows any degree of financial grasp.
Right, yeah.
But it also shows him hosting a British version of Wheel of Fortune. They're like desperate for money.
Like, what a bizarre double life that guy has led.
Yeah, I love where they put the album on and there's no vocals on it.
Yeah, they're all just waiting for the vocals to kick in. Did they realize in that moment, this band has bankrupted this label? Like, this band, these like, these pigeon murderers have a...
Not reliable.
Yeah.
Like, who was even hitting record?
Like, they should be in a conservatorship, the Ryder brothers. Like, they're... like prison or concert, like they should not be responsible. They should not have their own money. They should not like be allowed to be around kids, like or birds. Kids or birds. Animals,
really. I don't even know who you'd put in charge of the Ryder brothers as
like a drill sergeant, an executioner, like a professional wrestler.
Any one of these is like a great, a
guy
great...
who's just good with a cattle prod. I mean, like
to wrap it up on the plot talk through. They bring in, what is the name of this guy who they think they're going to get money out of?
Oh, the guy from like London something records. I don't know the name. Their kind of like last gasp is to maybe sell the album to another label or to get a distribution deal so they will pay for the vocals to get put on this Happy Monday album. And it'll finally see the light of day, and it turns into like a botched negotiation for the entire like Factory Records as a whole, which then we see like Tony just completely fucks that up. Like he looks at like 5 million quid in the face and it's like, yeah, never mind. No.
I mean, even if he'd had it to sell, that seems like very little for New Order.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the club can't pay its bills. It closes. They smoke a joint on the roof because at least Sean brought decent weed back from Barbados. He seems like he left everything in Barbados. And then God speaks from the clouds,
mm-hmm.
and he looks like Tony. But see, I love meta. I love referencing. And because this isn't something we see a ton, I like this as a way of wrapping things up.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's thumbing its nose at this idea where everyone has to have some kind of big revelation
mm-hmm.
on their way into the final act.
Yeah.
But it's like, so the most colorful chapter in their lives is over, but
mm-hmm.
it's fine. They all carry on.
It's like, hey, we have to be adults now.
Yeah. So what did everyone do after the Hacienda closed?
New Order became famous. Buzzcocks became
Did they
huge.
regain control of their financial situation, I hope?
New Order? Oh, they're doing fine. You don't got to worry about New Order, Sarah. They're doing okay. They're doing just fine.
Yeah. They've got green eyes. They've got blue eyes.
Yeah,
they've got gray eyes, Sarah.
They're not starving. We'll just say that.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, I love this movie. I loved it when I saw it because it turns so many things that I hate on their heads.
Yeah.
It does none of the things that I hate that these movies do. There are no inner children. Nothing occurs in a black box theater. There is no death of a sibling as an impetus to creativity. Like, yes, Ian Curtis dies, but that's an earned thing.
You don't
see
an
turn
abusive parent saying, "You'll never amount to anything. You'll never be a songwriter."
Right. You don't see like Ian showing up to have it like in his head talk with like, Tony, you're a cunt.
You don't see Debbie Curtis like, Ian, we have a kid to feed. Why you can't be the future of rock and roll. We have a child to feed. While you're off being the Che Guevara of punk rock music. We don't get that. We don't have to deal with that.
I love that.
It skirts all of the sentimental cliches like it hasn't even heard of them. And it's also that I love things that are high concept and I love verbally clever stuff. And I'm an Anglophile and I like that so much of the humor here is mental because I very rarely laugh at purely physical or emotional humor.
Yeah. Bez has to think about his whole life before he shakes the maracas.
Yeah. I loved too that I think there's something really humble about, and I feel like people don't call Tony humble very often, but about like the acknowledgement of like, I'm a supporting player in the most interesting part of my life.
Yeah, he seems to acknowledge that. Like, I am just a conduit to much more interesting people. I am just the best. The lens you're going to watch, like, the people that actually change the world.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a good way to do a biopic, is when you do, like, the really lofty figures from in their head, it gets too, like, serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next thing is is there any dialogue that either of you thought was, like, special?
I thought the whole
choice dialogue is
I'm
what
a
we call
genius,
this.
you're all wankers. Andy Serkis.
Yeah. And also
a lot of good Steve Coogan quips. I mean, none are coming to my mind, but he was just a lot of like, even when he's kind of like getting roasted, he's still got a good one. Leaving that sight gag of leaving Stephen Morris on the roof will never stop being funny to me.
I skipped awards talk.
There's no awards talk.
It screened at Cannes, though, didn't it? Dialogue that I wrote down that I liked was, the public likes public executions.
Mm.
How many people were at the Last Supper? I only got a blowjob. That's full penetration.
Oh, no, the best dialogue. So, how many people were at the Last Supper? Archimedes was alone when he got in the bed.
Yeah.
That one, Archimedes, that got me.
Yeah, he is very quotable within this. I don't know if Tony Wilson actually said this stuff because he's saying it within conversations. Mm-hmm. That, also something Martin says, people have been playing like that for 20,000 years, and quite frankly, it's boring me ass off.
Mm.
Jazz is the last refuge of the untalented. And finally, I'm being postmodern before it was fashionable.
A lot of good quotes.
Yeah. Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher about how we score movies?
Of course, I'd be happy to. We rate our movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important in most films, but especially tailored to issues in biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for previous episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
For outward appearances, hair and makeup, I gave it a 9. For acting and casting, I gave it a 9. For passage of time, I gave it an 8. For costuming, 8.5. For quality of the script, I gave it a 9. For accuracy, I gave it a 4. For storytelling, was it cliched? Was it interesting? Was it inventive? I gave it a 9. For production value, I gave it a 9.5. For production and direction decision-making, I gave it a 10. And for Do We Care, I gave it a 9, which brought my average to 8.7, but I'm using the by, so 9.7. And like I said, I do love this movie.
Yeah. Outward appearances, I gave it a 9. Acting and casting, I gave it a 10. A passage of time, I gave it a 5. Costuming, I gave it a 9. Quality of the script, I gave it an 8. Accuracy, I split the difference because it's true to him, but it seems like it's a lot of inflated truth. So I gave it a 5. Storytelling, 9. Production value, 9. Production and direction decision-making, 9. Do we care? I gave it a 6. I care about some.
What's your average, Sarah?
7.9.
Okay. Maggie, you can read off now.
Okay, here we go. So, outward appearances, makeup and hair, I gave it a 10. Acting, casting, 9. Passage of time, 7. Costuming, 8. Quality of the script, 10. Accuracy, 6. Storytelling, 10. Production value, 8. Production, direction, decision-making, 10. Do we care? Yes, I care. 10.
Cool. Okay, what does that add up to?
I'm not doing math. Not doing math. Oh, I didn't even write them down, I don't think. Can my score be a mystery?
Why don't you, would you give it a 9? It sounds like that averages to a 9.
Yeah, it's a 9.
And the total comes to 8.8666666666666 yada. Okay, which means that for the first time in a couple months, a movie earned second opinion.
24-hour party people, you've qualified for a second opinion. We stole this element of our show from How Did This Get Made?
Prize for scoring above an 8 or below a 4 is that you get to hear us make fun of IMDb reviewers who disagreed with our assessment of the film. Our first review, worst movie ever, from El Jefe-1, written on November 18th of 2002. Worst movie ever. Worst movie I've seen in a long time. The newspaper reviewed it as a movie which follows the Sex Pistols and Company. Little did I know it would be about the rave scene. I hate raves. My date fell asleep during this movie. I was tempted to sleep, but the awful British accents and crappy music kept me awake. And 8 out of 23 people found this review helpful. Sarah, what do you think?
Interesting take. I think saying it's the worst movie ever is a little I get like not liking a thing, but worst movie ever is pretty intense.
Well, we've seen Gotti, we've seen The Conqueror.
You made me watch Tennessee Johnson this year.
Oh my God, you're right. That was really bad too. I feel like this reviewer's newspaper did her a disservice in saying it was about, because the Sex Pistols are only in the film very briefly. So
I wonder if that's the only band name this person could remember.
Possibly.
Was the one they've heard about the most on VH.
Okay.
I mean, I too deeply dislike raves, but I still managed to find the movie good. I guess I don't hate them as much as this person. Oh well.
All right, am I
cool.
ready? Is this my time to shine?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I think this person is called Dana Dunkley. They left this review in February of 2005. So this review is 20 years old. As usual, Sundance has given us yet another so-called masterpiece that manages to barely qualify as a movie. How long will it take for people to stop paying attention to the Bad Movies Are Us Film Festival, also known as Sundance? Wait! Nobody pays attention anymore except a few acquisitions people in Hollywood eager to justify their sky vacation. The reason the Sundance label now stands for lack of quality? Movies like this that look and feel like a home video without actual real people in them. Avoid at all costs. 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10.
So, what do you think of this review, Maggie?
I enjoy that they tried to do like the Toys R Us branding with their Bad Movies R Us Film Festival. But then they had to go a little, like I already know what you're talking about Sundance. You don't got to go also known as Sundance.
It seems like their problem is more with Sundance than it is with this movie.
Like, I don't know that they even like care about any of the subject matter, or like they don't talk about anything in this movie really.
Oh, you're right.
Like, without actual real people, then means like, hey, they're all British and I don't know who they are. Is that what that means?
No, they don't even complain about British people.
Yeah, but they don't really tell you much about what they're complaining about. So it's like actual real people. So not American actors, like actors you don't know. I think it's just like actors I don't know.
You know what the best part of this is? I can't find any information that says that this movie played at the Sundance Film Festival.
You're right.
Wow. Sundance wasn't a purchaser of the rights, investing in its distribution. As far as I can tell, it does not appear to like have any connection with the Sundance Film Festival. So is that the best part of this review?
It seems like Dana Dunkley just wanted to complain about Sundance and didn't do their research.
Which I get it. I also like that film festival has like looks like Eazy-E's pool party on a mountain.
Yeah, wait. Before we go, Maggie, do you have anything you want to plug?
I'm on Twitter at Maggie's, still in that hellhole at Maggie Serota. I'm on Blue Sky at Maggie Serota. At Maggie Serota on all your fine social media outlets.
Okay, terrific. And thank you so much for coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Maggie.
Thank you for having me. It's a great time talking about one of my favorite movies.
Cool.
We tend to carry on. We appreciate
my favorite movie genre.
That's great.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
See ya. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye, Maggie. Other stuff that you should watch instead? I'm good with watching this movie.
Yeah, I strong recommend. And also I would say too, just like this movie made me think a lot about other things that I would want to see made into a film in this format. Mm-hmm. And like, I was thinking of like this band could be, this band could be your life? I can't remember the name. Our band could be your life. Mm-hmm. And then also Meet Me in the Bathroom could both just be really great movies about music scenes told in a way that it has like this kind of energy. I like the way that this was done, and it can't work for everything, but it's so fun.
Before we go, retractions, apologies, and listener mailbag.
Before we go, we have to apologize for something we said in the previous episode that turned out to be misinformation, and we are sorry for this.
We were wrong. Sometimes we're wrong.
What were we wrong about this time?
There are actually at least 6, not 2, cases of an actor appearing in a film and being played by someone else in a film that we do. I forgot to mention John Wayne, Kirk Douglas, Richard Burton, and Ringo Starr. I think the 2 that we had mentioned before were Elizabeth Taylor and Gene Seberg.
Yes.
So that was quite a bit of oversight.
I don't know how I can justify forgetting John Wayne and Kirk Douglas because they were in that movie. But
yeah, they were both
Richard
played
Burton,
in Trumbo, and they both, yeah.
But anyway, we were wrong.
Yeah, well,
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, so I guess we have a Patreon now.
We do. Our podcast baby is matured. And we have launched our Patreon. We are offering shout outs to anyone who chips in for us. And with that, we'd love to thank Gates, who signed up already.
With that, can you please take us out?
I'd be happy to. If you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from our episodes. Our Instagram handle is @Biopic a Podcast Story. So do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Please also check our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. If you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com.
Tune in next week when we'll be talking about The Naked Civil Servant, starring John Hurt as Quentin Crisp, the first film in this year's Pride Month series. And I can't believe we're in our second Pride Month series.
I can't believe it either.
Like, it's been over a year since we launched. That's crazy.
Well, Rena, as always, a pleasure.
Yes, so good night to the earnest and the cynical.
Good night,
and
Rena.
Good night, Sarah.